Hey guys, I'm Razz, Pitazz. Hope you're having a great day today. In today's video, we're going to be covering the Firefight Beta. It is loads of fun. If you haven't had a chance, go ahead and do that. It's up until Tuesday now, so you have plenty of time to go ahead and get a couple matches in. The game is even better if you have friends to play with. I managed to get 7 other people. Some of them are in my current Spartan company, and we all just got into a party chat, loaded in a game, and it was just loads of fun. Each of us had played a couple rounds before the one that you're seeing. I wasn't playing my best. This was my last match of the day, but nonetheless, it was still loads of fun despite my inefficiencies. I didn't do terrible, I just didn't do great. So I'm going to take this time and go over the rounds that we did play that you're seeing right now. I'm going to go ahead and comment on some of the things that I feel could be improved, some things that could be fixed, but in general, I'm also going to point out a lot of praises that I can give it. However, right out the gate, I do feel that the round 1 challenge is very, very weak. It's very heavily weighed, apparently, to be kill X amount of whatever enemy it wants to throw at you. It could be grunts, jackals, crawlers. I don't think I've seen elites yet. That might be in there. However, it only requires 75, and I really do feel that this needs to be increased to like 100, maybe like 120. And the reason for that is that even if we don't split up, it only takes us maybe half the time limit to mop up all of these guys. And I understand that the first round is supposed to be pretty easy. I mean, it's the first round. But when you only have 5 rounds, it still needs to be somewhat challenging, especially for intermediate players that are getting into Firefight. Someone on the forums, Atlantis XD, mentioned that it would be a great addition to have suicide grunts within the mix. Not an army of suicide grunts, but just to have them among the general population that's dropped in. And I think that would be awesome. That would force players to separate from themselves and just throw in a little bit of a challenge there. Now, I do want to comment on the timing of the spirits when they come in and drop enemies. For the initial round, the timing is actually really great because you go from one spawn point to the other, and as soon as you get to the next spawn point, the spirits are already there dropping enemies, and that is awesome. However, there are moments when you're just waiting for the spirits. You're wasting like 10, maybe 15 seconds just waiting for the ships to show up so you can go ahead and mop up the rest of the grunts, jackals, crawlers, what have you that you need for the remaining objective. Another issue I've seen consistently among the matches is that when you have the Kill X objective in the earlier rounds, usually round 1 or round 2, the last few that you need to clean up are kind of scattered over the map a little bit, and especially if they're like grunts or crawlers, they can be kind of hard to find. So we don't necessarily need them to gravitate towards each other, but if the kill count for the round was increased, then you could drop more, making that particular group larger, and that would make them a little bit more visible. I did notice that at the beginning of the matches you can use boost cards. However, I can also use boost cards such as the Gambit Spartan kills or the Gambit Marine kills. In fact, in this match I did use the Gambit Spartan kills boost. I don't know if those should be activated during Firefight. At the end of the match, whether you win or lose, all of your teammates are going to have 0 Spartan kills and 0 Marine kills, which is just a free boost. I'm all for free boosts, but maybe you could create another Gambit, like a Gambit Victory for Firefight, or maybe even like a Gambit Score, Gambit kill count. Now you'll notice that during round 2 that I'm hanging back a little bit and I'm using mainly my magnum and my grenades to try to pick off the enemies. And that's because at this point they're still pretty weak and susceptible to these types of damage. And that is very, very intentional. I did not really want to use any of my high-end rec cards during this. It's only a beta and I really didn't want to use them on a beta. However, I also really didn't feel that they were necessary. After a couple rounds in Firefight, I kind of learned that positioning is more important than firepower. I want to point out that the addition of the Watchers in Firefight was a very good decision. Increasing their amount as opposed to normal Warzone was a very good call. It gives it a slight MMO feel where you need to kill the ads before the bosses, but during this particular round, it didn't feel overwhelming like it does in later rounds at some points. I think that the speed that you gain rec levels and that you regain rec points is actually very fitting for the number of rounds that we currently have in Firefight, but I'll get into that a little bit more towards the end. A lot of players have brought up the point of using lives over timers for each round. I can understand it, and I kind of agree with it. I just don't think they're really going to do it. They might. I'm not saying they won't, but they could. They could do it. It might be more beneficial to have a mix. Maybe we could increase the timer while giving shared lives across the board. The problem with this, though, is that when you have people who are going into Firefight and they're not experienced, they could be very prone to grief with the people that they're playing with, especially since this is now a match-made playlist. And I think with the decision to go with timers over lives or even shared lives is a move by 343 to ensure that those inexperienced players don't really receive that kind of grief, and the entire team doesn't feel like they're being punished because they brought one person on board who isn't as good at it yet as they are. For some reason at this point in the game, I picked the silencer on my battle rifle like, it was going to do anything. And then I just missed all my shots completely. I was already embarrassed with myself, and thankfully none of my other teammates saw me do it, but I just totally ate it. I did say earlier that I didn't use any of my own wrecks because I just really didn't feel like using them in the beta, but I did use my teammates' wrecks. And the thing is that even though this is round 3 and we have 2 more rounds to go after this, using vehicles kind of just makes this game mode not that challenging. And it's for this reason that a lot of people are asking about skull modifiers, and I'm kind of on the fence about it. The old school firefights did have skull modifiers based on the round, but the classic firefight was more like an offline custom game mode, and I don't really know how they could implement it well into the online environment. And this right here is another example of me being way too tired to be playing this. For some reason, I just completely blanked on the fact that there was a tunnel to the right of me that I could have just taken to get to the other side, and in a mode of just effing off, I decided I was going to take the Warthog up the stairs just to see if I could do it. So back to the skull modifiers. They could include an option in the pregame lobby where you could vote for this mode to be turned on. However, what this is going to do is it's going to open floodgates to other kinds of things where people are going to be like, oh, well, why don't you add a vote for more rounds? Why don't you add a vote for more difficulty? Why don't you add voting in general? And I really think they want to keep the idea of voting out of the game. Now, I'm not sure if this particular instance is a bug or if this could be considered more of like an exploit. But me and Task here are just chilling in the Warthog, and we're just shooting the Phaetons that are in the center of the map, and they are paying us absolutely no attention, which just makes it for an easy cleanup job. And this also ties into the idea of positioning is more important in firefight than actual power weapons, because we're just using a regular chain gun Warthog. Now, it might be an Oni Warthog, but they're not even shooting at us. So we're just sitting here, and it's taking a while to shoot these guys down, but they're not hurting us, and they're not really hurting our teammates because they're kind of in cover a little bit. And it effectively just makes this entire round here completely not challenging at all. After this, we do take it around, bring it into the center, and it's still not that challenging node because the damage from the Phaetons doesn't really seem that detrimental. And it could be because there's so few of them. It could be a damage scaling down because, well, they're Phaetons. But I was extremely unimpressed. I felt like I could just drive around and take direct hits from Phaetons and not be bothered whatsoever. I also do understand that this is a beta and you want people to actually complete it to find bugs and scripting errors and stuff like that. But the difficulty really does need to come up in some way or another. I do want to note that the 30-second intermission time is pretty brilliant. It gives you just enough time to get to a rec station, figure out what you may or may not want, and get out before anything actually starts happening. You also do have enough time, once it tells you where the wave is coming from and what it might be, to be able to get something specific. Now, I want to talk about defending the garage. Now, in this game, we weren't defending the garage, we were killing bosses. But a lot of people seem to have an issue with identifying that specific objective. So I just want to identify that that is an issue and the objective needs to become clearer. It wouldn't hurt in the slightest. It's not going to interfere with the gameplay at all. But what does interfere with the gameplay is if the players don't know what they're supposed to do. Now, some people seem to have troubles defending the garage. I certainly really haven't. When you get a vehicle and you can circle around, it really just makes it that much easier. You have 8 players, so if you keep 4 people inside and 4 people outside, you can clear it pretty easily and pretty quickly because the enemies seem to be more intent on getting into the garage in the first place and staying there rather than preventing players from getting in. As I said, we finished this match in a little under 15 minutes, which was pretty quick, considering that there's 5 minutes for each round. That means that 343 assumes that some people are going to take 5 minutes and not be able to complete it, which can happen. It has happened to us. It did happen to me in a couple rounds, but once you've played it enough, that 5-minute timer doesn't mean anything at all, which effectively just turns Firefight into a 20-minute AI match, when people who are used to the classic firefight are used to an infinite amount of waves of increasing challenge. I just watched a video today of a team of 8 people who had cleared firefight in a little under 10 minutes, which should never happen. Firefight should never last less than 20 minutes, so we need more rounds. This time limit isn't really going to satiate classic firefight fans, and it's certainly not going to be challenging even for new firefight fans once they've played enough rounds. So instead of having this ridiculous jump between round 4 and round 5, we need to at least have 3 to 5 more rounds. I mean, the more rounds, the better, in all honesty. But the difficulty needs to scale appropriately. Not just in numbers, not just in health, but in tactics as well, if it can be done. I understand that 343 uses a different approach to programming their enemy AI, and that is completely fine. But it's just not enough. The biggest challenge is in round 5, and that is because the final boss is a mythic boss, which is great. I have no problems with a mythic boss. I have no problems with the variety of bosses we now have. But the problem that I do have are the fact that the ads for the final boss are also mythic, and that kind of irritates me a little bit, because I can get a sniper rifle and shoot the same mythic soldier 4 times in the head, and then he will die. All this effectively does is just make me prioritize the boss over the ads, which you should be doing, but I can ignore the ads entirely. Now, you can't ignore the Watchers, which is great. You have to kill those to be able to kill the Warden and whatever bosses they are covering. But the Soldier ads and the Crawler ads don't make much of a difference when it comes to that final boss battle. They just feel like they're more in the way than anything else. So I do really personally feel that they need to be scaled down from Mythic to just slightly less difficult. You don't have to bring them all the way down to normal, but you need to have more of these ads. They need to be able to engage you as a player and challenge you to get to that boss. And they still need to be able to be ignored, but it needs to be a threat that if you choose to ignore them, they can easily flank you and destroy you. And my final thought for all of the Firefight Beta, I found it fun, it was completely enjoyable, especially with friends, but in all honesty, I felt that this Firefight Beta is what the campaign should have felt like. You have a large, vast area with many routes, with many enemies standing in the way of your objective. Sometimes the enemies are that objective, and then you move on. Alright guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you're going to go ahead and play that Firefight Beta. It is tons of fun. I can't say it enough. It is fun. It is worth your time. Go ahead and hit that like button if you found it helpful at all and if it gave you any insights whatsoever. If you want to see more videos from me in the future or just want to stay up to date for when I release them, hit the subscribe button. Feel free to comment below. Let me know what you thought about the video. Let me know your own opinions on Firefight, whether you agree with me, disagree with me, or if you have completely different ideas. And as always, thanks for watching.
Rounds clear, Spartan. Simulation complete. Level 8 Rex available.